It is 6 p.m. here in Cairo, time for the news bulletin, and we will be starting straight away with the main headlines. U.S. President Donald Trump expects Hamas to respond to his final proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza in the next 24 hours. Dozens killed in Gaza as the United Nations says hundreds have died while seeking aid near sites run by the U.S. group. And Russia pummels Kiev with the largest drone attack of the war, injuring at least 23 people. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Migration and the Expatriates Affairs, Badr Abdulati, praised the positive upward in relations between Egypt and Norway, both in the economic and the political aspects. He stressed the importance to work on the outcomes of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's recent visit to Norway in December of 2024. This came during a phone call between Abdulati and the Norwegian counterpart, Espen Barth Eide. Foreign Minister Abdulati briefed the counterpart on the efforts exerted by Egypt, Qatar and the United States to quickly reach a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, warning against rising Israeli settlement policies in the occupied West Bank. The top diplomat also asserted the importance of cementing the ceasefire in Israel-Iran war, as well as resuming the diplomatic path, which would contribute to achieving calm and reducing tensions in the region. U.S. President Donald Trump said that he expected Hamas to respond to the final proposal for the ceasefire in Gaza in the next 24 hours. Trump had announced earlier that Israel had accepted the conditions needed to finalize a 60-day ceasefire with Hamas, during which the parties would work towards ending the war. Hamas, which has previously declared it would only agree to a deal for a permanent end to the war, has said that it was studying the proposal, but given no public indication whether it would be accepting or rejecting it. The Israeli occupation airstrikes killed at least 15 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip early on Friday, while another 20 people died in shootings while waiting for aid at the sites run by the U.S. and the Israeli-backed agency and the enclave. Among those who were killed in the strikes were 8 women and 1 child. Nasser Hospital said that 20 who were killed near distribution sites in Rafah and 18 who were waiting for trucks to deliver supplies elsewhere in southern Gaza. The health ministry in Gaza said that the number of Palestinians killed in the territory has passed 57,000. According to the Palestinian witnesses and the Gaza Health Ministry, several hundred people have been killed or wounded by the Israeli troops when trying to reach the aid sites since they opened in May. Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal ibn Farhan Al Saud said that the kingdom's current priority is reaching a permanent ceasefire in Gaza when asked about the possibility of normalizing ties with Israel. He was speaking during a visit to Moscow. In 2024, the Saudi Foreign Minister said that there can be no normalization of ties with Israel without resolving the Palestinian issue. He added that we are seeing is that the Israelis are crushing Gaza, the civilian population of Gaza, highlighting that this is completely unnecessary, completely unacceptable, and has to stop. The World Health Organization said that the Nasser Hospital in Gaza is operating as one massive trauma ward due to an influx of patients injured at the non-United Nations food distribution sites. The U.S. and Israeli-backed GHF began distributing the food packages in Gaza at the end of May, overseeing a new model of deliveries that the United Nations says is neither impartial nor neutral. World Health Organization representative in the West Bank and Gaza said that the Nasser hospital staff have already seen for weeks daily injuries, and the majority coming from non-UN food distribution sites. Meanwhile, the United Nations Human Rights Office said that it had recorded at least 613 killings, both at the 8 points run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation and near humanitarian convoys. Aid groups have warned that the heat in Gaza has intensified the hardships for the 2 million residents as the Israeli brutal war entered the 22nd month. Reduced water availability, crippled sanitation networks, and shrinking living spaces due to the expansion of the Israeli mortars' ground offensives threaten to cause illnesses to cascade through the communities. The scorching summer coincides with the lack of clean water for the majority of the Gaza population, most of whom are displaced in tented communities. Many Palestinians in the enclave must walk along the distances to fetch water and ration each stop, limiting their ability to wash and keep cool. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said that Iran remains committed to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and its Safeguards Agreement. He said that the Iranian cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency will be channeled through Iran's Supreme National Security Council for obvious safety and security reasons. President Masoud Pezeshkian enacted a legislation passed by the parliament last week to suspend cooperation with the IAEA a week after the Israeli attacks on the Iranian safeguarded nuclear sites. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said that the army must draw up a plan to prevent Iran from threatening Israel again after the arch-foes fought a 12-day war last month. Katz added at a meeting with the military leaders that the Israeli military's current mission is to prepare an enforcement plan to ensure that Iran cannot threaten Israel once again. Ukraine said that Russia had launched 550 drones and missiles at Kyiv overnight as the Kremlin steps up aerial attacks and the US-led peace talks stall. Authorities in the Ukrainian capital said that Russia pummeled Kyiv with drones in an all-night attack, injuring at least 23 people, damaging the railway infrastructure, and setting buildings and cars on fire throughout the city. The details follow. Pummeled Kyiv with the largest drone attack of the war, injuring at least 23 people and damaging buildings across the capital, all the hours after the US President Donald Trump spoke with Russia's Vladimir Putin. Trump said that the call with the Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday resulted in no progress at all on the efforts to end the war, while the Kremlin reiterated that Moscow would keep pushing to solve the conflict's root causes. Air raid sirens, the whine of kamikaze drones and booming detonations reverberated from early evening until at dawn, as Russia launched what Ukraine's Air Force said was a total of 539 drones and 11 missiles. Residents huddled with the families in the underground metro stations for shelter. Smoke hung over the city center. President Volodymyr Zelensky is due to speak to Trump later on Friday about the war and the U.S. pause in some deliveries of the air defense missiles, called the attack deliberately massive and cynical. Zelensky called for the increased pressure on Moscow to change its dumb, destructive behavior. Kyiv officials said that the attack damaged about 40 apartment blocks, passenger railway infrastructure, 5 schools and the kindergartens, cafes and many cars in 6 of Kyiv's 10 districts. Poland said that the consular section of its embassy was damaged in central Kyiv, adding that the staff were unharmed. Russian airstrikes on Kyiv have intensified in recent weeks and included some of the deadliest assaults of the war on the city of 3 million people. Russia and Ukraine announced a fresh prisoner swap on Friday as part of agreements reached during talks in Istanbul last month. At those talks, the two parties agreed to free all the heavily wounded, ill and under 25-year-old captive troops. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky published the photographs of freed Ukrainian troops wrapped in blue and yellow flags. Zelensky said that they included servicemen from the Army, National Guard, Border Service and Transport Service and civilians. Russia's Defense Ministry also reported the swap, saying Kyiv handed over a group of its servicemen who are currently in Moscow-allied Belarus. Pakistan's army said that it had killed 30 people attempting to cross the border from Afghanistan over the last 3 days after a suicide attack killed 16 soldiers in the same region. The operation took place in the border district of North Waziristan, where last week a faction of the Pakistan Taliban claimed a suicide blast on the military. Islamabad blames both its neighbors, Afghanistan and India, for backing such terrorist groups. Flash floods and landslides after torrential rain over the last 2 weeks killed at least 69 people and injured 110 others in India's northern Himalayan regions. Scores of people die each year during the rainy season due to the flash floods and landslides across India, a country of 1.4 billion people. India's meteorological department issued a fresh alert for the heavy to very heavy rainfall in different areas. Minister of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation, Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, held a series of meetings with the multi-party development partners and the government representatives. Dr. Al-Mashat held a meeting with the European Commissioner for the International Partnerships, Joseph Sikela, and discussed the Egyptian-European partnership, namely in the economic and the budget support. Al-Mashat also held a separate meeting with the World Bank top official and reviewed means to expand the joint cooperation. The meetings took place on the sidelines of the 4th UN International Conference on Financing for Development, currently taking place in Spain. China said that the United States had eased certain export restrictions in line with the framework reached in talks last month, warning against blackmail as the country's attempt to de-escalate a ruinous trade war. The world's top 2 economies agreed to an outline of a deal to walk back from the brink of recent tariffs of last month's meeting in London, with the concessions including Beijing's resumption of key rare earth exports. Prior to the London talks, Beijing and Washington had agreed to lower steep tit-for-tat tariffs on each other's products. And this brings us to the end of the news bulletin for now. Thank you for watching and goodbye.